Hello, NIMSY writers. This is Stephen Yale. I'll be working with you throughout this writing process, and I'm creating this screencast to speed up the initial kind of meeting time. Instead of having a big webinar where I go over all this stuff with everybody, I figured you can just kind of watch it at your leisure. So what you should have received in your email, along with a link to this screencast, is a link to this document and a physical copy of it attached. So if you when you open up this document, what you'll find is basically a flowchart outlining the writing process. And then down towards the bottom here, you have all of your writer resources. So this is going to be a pretty important document. Of course, if at any time you misplace any of this stuff, all you got to do is reach out to me and I'll be happy to send it to you. Or if something doesn't work, I can send you physical copies of all these things as well. So now, here we go. So what we have is first, what you're going to do is you're going to watch the screencast and review the resources that I have linked here. Once you're done with that, you and I will meet either on the phone or digitally through Skype or Google Hangouts, or if you have a preferred platform, that's fine. I'm down with any of them. One thing that I've learned throughout working with writers as both a writer and working with writers is that this process can be either be extremely frustrating for both of us, or it can be extremely painless and beneficial and productive. And the common denominator there, in terms of determining which one of those it is, tends to be communication. So I'm a big believer in clear communication and clear expectations. So during our meeting, it's very important that the two of us agree on goals, expectations, process, etc. I do have some flexibility, so if there's a certain way you like to work, I'm perfectly fine with that. But I think you'll find that the way I have it set up is pretty easy and allows you to be flexible and do things the way that you want. Now, once we do that, we will also discuss, how many sessions you want to write, what your current bandwidth looks like as far as what you're capable of doing, and deadlines. And once we have all that hammered out, I'll get a contract to you. You do get $400 per session that you write, and we're currently looking at sprints that are roughly 2 to 3 weeks. So once you get that contract back to me, and also if you're new to NIMSY, you would set up a Chrome River account for reimbursements. But I can help you with that also. And of course, if you're an existing writer or have worked with us before, you don't have to do that. So once that's out of the way, you would begin working on your writer's template. Now I've color-coded the writer's template, and you'd also work on the other session documents. You would share your rough draft with me as early as possible. I have a Smartsheet set up for you to do that, and I'll take you through that process here in a second. And then as soon as you do that to me, I will immediately, hopefully, give you feedback within 24 hours. And if you look at my feedback and you think that I misunderstood you, or you think that I'm not capturing kind of the spirit of what you're trying to do, feel free to push back. Again, I'm your partner in this, and I want to collaborate with you. And I've determined that you guys are experts, so I really want to work with you in this process. When in doubt, we should have a face-to-face, virtual meeting. And again, I will be more than respectful of your time. I will not try to eat it up. And then this process just kind of repeats until we feel that the session is completed, and in which time you would submit it for final review, and that would be all of the documents that go along with it, which I'll talk about here in a second. And you would upload links to those or the documents themselves to a Smartsheet, which again, I'll walk you through. Once that is accepted as complete, I will notify you to go ahead and submit in Chrome River for payment. If you are writing multiple sessions, we're going to do them concurrently. So you would submit multiple sessions as one reimbursement. For those of you that aren't familiar with our reimbursement process, I'll be happy to help you with it. For those of you that are, that probably makes sense to you. So that's the overall process. It's designed to be smooth and painless. I will tell you that if you're used to being assigned something and then you turn it in at the deadline, that is not the way that I like to work. I would much rather you share with me as soon as possible your rough draft, and I kind of follow along with you. I promise I will not pester you and micromanage you, but the worst possible scenario is when something gets turned in at the deadline and then it has to be redone, or then you get feedback that you feel you're having to recreate work when we could have addressed that from the very, very beginning. So communication is key, and it is one of the things I will be asking for more than anything else. Okay, so let's take a look at the actual documents themselves and what you will be expected kind of to produce for us. So This first one is an information document. So if you click on that link down there, this takes you to a little blurb about being an IMSI writer, kind of what our goals are with this. And I'm not going to read this at you. You're welcome to do that. It outlines the 4 different sprints we're doing for our Summer Institute writing. And if you click on those will take you to the Strand Blueprints, which I also have linked in another place here in a second. It also has a link to your writer's template, which again is linked on the previous document. And the important thing for now is this is kind of a norm for what we're attempting to accomplish is in the interest of keeping things nice and neat and organized for printing purposes and organization and producing our manuals come summertime. I'm asking you to kind of keep your documents as uniform as possible. So what you will turn back into me for each session is really pretty simple. You'll have your writer's template, which I'll go over in a second, and that's designed to both walk you through the process of writing in a logical sort of manner, but it's also going to serve as the facilitator guide for the presenter of your session over the summer. So it's very important that your writer's template be written with that in mind. And as far as language goes, you would use second person, so you're like telling the presenter what to do. So do this, do this. You're not really telling a narrative story like I would do this. And then along with that, you would have a participant document. So whatever the document is that you would want participants to access. Now, in some cases, this might be a full lab or something like that, right? We're just doing assessment, so this might be like the assessment questions you want them to look at, or if there's a table that they fill out, et cetera, et cetera. Whatever goes in front of the participants would go in this participant document. Now, if you have 5 different things that will go in front of the participants kind of sequentially, put them together as a single document, and we'll kind of sort that out, just page break them apart. Now, we are going as digital as possible, so paperless rather than paperless, right? If there is something that needs to be printed, that is totally understandable. You would have a print document. So in some cases, these might be exactly the same. If you have minimal materials to put in front of people and the only thing is something that they should have a copy of, these would be literally the same thing. But we're differentiating between those because these will go, the participant documents will go in a digital notebook for them, so they have a copy of it for later. The print document will actually be printed and on site for them. So keep in mind as you make these decisions about what to print and what not to print, that each room will be equipped with chart paper. I'm going to order whiteboards for you guys, markers, etc. So you'll have, at least one whiteboard per table. You'll have chart paper. You'll have all kinds of stuff. So if you're worried about them just being able to work problems, I wouldn't think that you need to have that as a print document. But you're the one that's going to make those judgments. And I might question you a little bit on it, but I'm definitely not going to overrule you because you are the content expert in my mind. So just keep that in mind. We're trying to simplify and move towards digital. And then in addition to that, you would have a 4th document, which is your solution document. So this is really your answer key for the presenter. Now keep in mind that these are not presenter notes, like giving them detailed instructions for what to do in the session. That is going to be in your writer's template. This is basically, in most cases, a version of the participant document with solutions. Now, if you're having them create something that you can't anticipate exactly what participants will come up with, all you would do in this case is produce an example of what they might come up with so that the presenter kind of knows what they should be looking for. Okay, so that's your answer key, basically. So those 4 documents. And again, if you have multiple things, they would just go in those documents. But at the end of the day, what you turn into me would be 4 documents. If you have something like a PowerPoint or other things, what we will probably wind up doing is you would submit those to me in addition, but I would ask you to link to them in the participant document, and I can change those hyperlinks later. But if you have stuff like that, I can talk to you about how to do that. Now, in addition to this, there's a link down here to the writer's rubric. Okay, so that's what we use to evaluate writers, and that's also probably a good thing for you to kind of look at just to kind of quality control your own writing work. So I'm not going to read the rest of this to you. Please read it. That's what I'm asking you to do so that I'm not reading it at you. Okay, so now back to this. That's your information document. Now your writer's template, we've gone through several iterations of this, and this has been determined to be pretty simple and painless now that it's been modified a couple times. So now the first thing you notice is that this is color-coded with the highlighting tool in Microsoft Word. So the reasoning for that is that, remember, this is going to serve 2 purposes. This is going to be your document for creating the session. So we believe in, when it comes to curriculum design, we typically use like a understanding by design type model where you really believe what you start with the end and you kind of plan to get there. So we wanted to allow you to kind of follow that model, but that's not the natural way that it'll look in the end. So the color coding is basically telling you what to do first. So I adopted a stoplight model. So you should do all of the green content first, and then you should do the yellow content, and then when you're done with the yellow content, you would do the red content. So I think when you look at this, it's pretty straightforward. Basically, these are the headers. You would type in the brackets for each of these sections, and it's all pretty straightforward, but feel free to let me know if you have any questions. Now, back to this. So you also have a link on here to your Strand Blueprints. Now you will want to access this because one of the sections on your writer's template asks you for the standards that you're addressing in the session. So we're in the assessment strand, so if you click on that link, it'll open this up for you. And this is a pretty long document. I encourage you to read it, but you don't necessarily have to read it right at the beginning, but you definitely do want to read it. This outlines what we want to accomplish for a teacher. Eventually, this will include 3 years of teacher growth. Right now, it includes only 1. So these are the kind of standards, if you will, that we're trying to pattern our trainings after. So on your writer's template, when it asks for essential learning outcomes and understanding and teacher action indicators, you would literally just copy and paste the ones that apply. And that's probably something that you and I will actually talk about when we match you up with what sessions you're going to write. But those are copy and pastable type things. And then going down here to the bottom is we have some sessions. So these are the sessions that we're going to write for assessment. These are pretty much predetermined. I told you guys that the assessment strand is the easiest one kind of to write for. It's a good place to start because we want some uniformity. So we're kind of giving you places to start, and then we're asking you to kind of match them to your expertise in your content area. So, and also bring in creativity. So these are things that are going to be interspersed throughout 4 days of training. So as you're writing it, don't feel like, man, these people are just, you know, taking apart multiple choice questions and stuff like that. That's not, these are interspersed throughout 4 days. And these are primarily going to be first year teachers, but you do want to consider that you might have some experienced people in there as well when you're writing. So those are the sessions, and we'll talk about those, but that's linked there if you'd like to see. You can also look at additional strands if you're interested in what the next sprint will look like. Just keep in mind those are works in progress. Now, you also have a Smartsheet. So the Smartsheet is what we will be using to submit and track our progress. So right now it's broken up with all the science courses, and you can see that you have the titles of the sessions, the session code, which is on there. So basically A1 is this, and you can see that those repeat because we're doing the same sessions for each of our topics. Now, once this is all said and done, and after I talk to everybody, I will assign writers to specific ones of these once we come to an agreement, and I will indicate what the progress is. So the progress is either in progress, waiting for feedback, or accepted as complete. Now, you can edit this as well, okay? So I'm assuming you wouldn't give your assignment to somebody else, but you would want to edit this one. So once you have something that you feel is done, or rough draft done, and you want feedback on it, all you would do is you would go in and you would change this from in progress to waiting for feedback, and then over here there's a little place to attach stuff, and you click on that and you can attach whatever you want. So you can link to a Google Doc or OneDrive, or you can upload the file directly. It's pretty easy, but what this does is it allows us to kind of capture a static document, and then so you can keep working on yours, I can give you feedback, etc., but it's nice and clean transfer. In addition to that, I might post notes in here. You can post notes in there to me. It's really up to you, but that's what we'll do. And then once it's completely finished, well, once I give you feedback, I'll just mark it back to in progress and, of course, email you, let you know. But once it's completed, we would mark it accepted as complete, and we would kind of track it. And again, this is where you'll turn in your final documents. So that's what that is. If you come in here and everything is kind of minimized, you can adjust that. Keep in mind, though, that Smartsheet is not truly a live document. You do need to save it. So if you attach documents, make sure you hit the save button. Otherwise, they may be lost. So that's your Smartsheet. And again, if you have any troubles with any of this stuff and you're just like, Steven, can I just email it to you? The answer is, of course, yes. But this makes my life a little easier. All right, it doesn't want to go back. Okay, now I'm just going to do it this way. Okay, now in addition to that, I have some sample sessions. So there is a sample session that was written by an environmental science teacher, one that was written by a physics teacher, one that was written by a calculus teacher. Some of you will actually be assigned these sessions, so you should look at them. But in your sample sessions, you have access to basically their writer's template and then their documents. So this one did not have a print document at all. So there's a participant document and a solution document for the presenter. And then in addition to that, you can look at like session 3, which is written by a calculus teacher, and same thing, okay? So those are samples, and I encourage you to look at those. And then finally, you have my email address, my cell phone number, and a link to handy dandy Chrome River. So if you have any struggles during this process at all, or have any questions after watching these screencasts, please let me know. Your next steps is check your email. You'll be getting a second email from me. You may have already gotten it, basically asking you what day this week would be good for you, and we'll take next steps from there. So I look forward to working with you, and thank you for your time.